While it's been widely discussed that UFOs are of an alien nature, we are starting to realize that many of these may also be man-made.
The stuff I was working on wasn't classified. The programs that were monitoring were.
Unconventional and unacknowledged activities and science that are not supposed to exist.
It accelerated at about a 30-degree angle of attack and left him in the dust. I mean, boom, 8,000 to 10,000 miles an hour.
They looked like butterflies that were on fire. Well, when I played the footage back, there was a TR3B sitting there cloaked above that ship the entire time.
Why is it that if these are solid triangular craft, are we able to sometimes see stars through them?
You're going to have a militarization of space, like an arms race in space, and that's going to require a significant classified component. That is a secret space program.
We're dealing with something very close to alien technology, engineered down to the atomic level.
Something really odd is going on out there.
What is going on, fam? It's so good to be back again with you guys. I have been gone for like a month. I have not been live streaming, which is so unusual for me because I've been, since I started, have not taken ever a break like this. So it is so good to be back with you guys tonight. I have an awesome guest on with me tonight, Darcy Weir. He's an incredible filmmaker, and I will have to tell the story about how I found him and how we found one another. But I'm so excited to have him on here with me tonight and get a chance to catch up with him and talk about the release of this new film, which, as you can see, yours truly made an appearance in. Hi, Darcy. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Alara, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm super stoked to be here. You're an awesome person, and looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, this is going to be great. I have so many things to ask you that it's going to be like, where do I even start? You know what I mean? So,
sure.
So I guess
Shoot.
we can start with kind of how this came about. So I found you because I've been watching Secure Team for years. So I don't know how many of you out there watch Secure Team, but if you're into UFOs and you don't watch Secure Team, it's kind of strange, you know?
Yeah.
So I was watching Secure Team, and he brought up working with you, I think, and he brought up one of your documentaries. I think that's how it happened. And I went and watched it, and I was so impressed with that documentary. Some of that moon footage that you had and some of the audio and some of the stuff that you had gathered, I was just blown away with what you had gathered and the job that you had done. It was the Secret Space. What's the title of that movie? The first one?
Secret Space UFOs. Yeah, it's Secret Space UFOs Part 1. And then I got involved with you and Tyler and Jim Goodall and Richard Dolan and Jack Casher and a whole bunch of other folks for this latest one, Secret Space UFOs Rise of the TR3B.
Yeah, I that's awesome. I saw that. It's crazy too how that happened because I saw that you saw that film that you had made. I heard that you guys were making the TR3B one, and it just so happens that I happen to have this TR3B footage above a UFO conference, right? That kind of doesn't go anywhere because it sits right here, and it was too weird when I saw that. So I had to reach out to you and tell you about that footage. So yeah, it was kind of weird how that all came together. Yeah.
Yeah, I even said, I was like, this is almost like serendipitous because you messaged me saying, hey, I have this footage, and I watched it, and then I was like, this is amazing because it fits perfectly in the middle of the documentary where I'm just about to kick off, explaining what the TR3B might be and what it's capable of, with other folks and such. And your footage is like the gateway into that because it actually shows, and based on your story, it demonstrates the full capabilities of apparently what a TR3B can do. Mm-hmm. So you discussed how, you're inside of this field, or you're on this field with all these other participants that are doing a sky watch, a night watch for UFOs in the 2019. Was that the Contact in the Desert conference?
Yes.
Yeah. And you couldn't see anything there that resembled the TR3B, but you saw these super strange, like what seemed in my mind when I heard the story and you know, was kind of illustrating it, were like almost like holographic
Yes.
images. And you went back to your hotel room after you're like, okay, I'm a bit burnt out on this and time to turn in. And when you looked back, you saw this light in the sky, and you couldn't see it with your eye, but the camera on your phone could pick up that there was a triangular object with, you know, the typical 3 lighted corners, and it was massive, and it was sitting over the same field that you had just came from. And you very intuitively put together that what you were experiencing in this field was most likely some kind of spoofing, some kind of projection that was put on by probably that craft that was not even observable to the human eye. And it was crazy, the fact that you were able to capture that. And many people have captured TR3Bs with their cameras and stated, I swear on my life, you know, I swear to God, if one believes in that, that I could not see this thing, but in my camera footage, I see this triangle. It's not a, you know, CGI or anything like that. And I've seen and heard that so many times. And I think, you know, with Jeremy Reese's explanation and what people have reported on time and time again throughout history about these supposed TR3Bs, when they cite them, is that they have this ability to cloak themselves. They're not available to be seen by our eye. But obviously the cameras that we have now are so advanced, you know, like the camera we have in our right. pocket is incredibly advanced these days, 4K, you know, we're going to 8K cameras soon. And somehow they're able to pick up some of these things the human eye can't. I mean, even infrared or ultraviolet light spectrum cameras are out there, and many UFO hunters throughout the years have been aiming those at the sky and trying to pick up UFOs in a different light spectrum that are completely invisible to the human eye. You know, the ultraviolet and infrared are completely out of our light range that we can see with our eye. And somehow there's many videos out there that demonstrate that that's a possibility in these different light ranges. And very commonly these triangular objects get picked up. So it just kind of follows that same pattern. And I was really excited to include your testimony, to include your footage, and, you know, make sure it was nestled in this overarching story of the TR3B.
Yeah, you know, when I sent it to you, I just wanted it to go somewhere because it's significant footage. It's very significant, and I just wanted it to get out of my little echo chamber and go somewhere. And I never expected that to be in your film or any of that stuff. So that's all kind of an addition that's slightly strange, but it's cool. I'm rolling with it. You know what I mean? Like we've discussed, Darcy, disclosure is my thing. Like, and whatever I got to do for that, I'm willing to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean? So I'm totally okay. I had to get over the whole being in the public thing like a few years ago, and I'm slowly getting over it. But at first, I was really weird about it. Like I didn't want anything to do with all that. But this is my mission. This is what I do, and I can't. You know, truthfully, I got righteously pissed off when I woke up when that first ship encounter I had, and I realized that we had a secret space program, it was being hidden from the public, and that we had this advanced technology, I got like righteous anger. And I was like, no, somebody's got to do something about this. This isn't right that they just lie to everybody about this and they have this super advanced tech. So anyway, it's just kind of my thing. So I'm dying to know, how does one become a UFO filmmaker? Like, how did this come about in your life, where you decided one day, I'm going to make movies about UFOs and Men in Black and all the super cool stuff that, we're into?
So, it starts in the dirty, pits of despair, pretty much, just like, your frustration of the public not being very in the know about certain things that are going on around the planet. That's exactly what I went through, when I first started making these films. I like to kind of take from my friend Stephen Bassett. What he says is that he's an activist in the regard that he wants disclosure to eventually hit the public, and it's part of his activist nature to engage politically the UFO issue. And I'm not engaging politically, but in my films, I am being somewhat of an activist by engaging the overarching theory that we're not alone and that we have been visited, and that the government has probably been running not the government as in the guys at the Capitol building. I don't want anybody to run over there and bust the doors down again, but the military industrial complex,
right.
Very, has been very active over the years in building and, researching and developing incredibly powerful technologies that could rise up, in my opinion, all of humanity into a next sort of level of existence. But instead, people are just, there's so much disparity. There's so much going on around the world. I mean, there's people that I've interfaced or had a discourse with in the past, and they would just kind of laugh in my face and say, why do you think this is an issue? Why aren't you focused on the fact that people are starving, or we're destroying the planet? We're polluting and destroying the environment, or the oceans are warming up and wildlife is disappearing, and we're experiencing the sixth extinction, and veganism is more important than anything else. Like, I've had all these arguments thrown at me. Oh, you're a speciesist because you eat something, whatever. And to me, this issue is just as important as all of those, because if you think about it, if our society is built on the lie that we're alone, and that the top of technology is fossil fuel energy or uranium nuclear reactions that boil water and make turbines move with steam. If we're going to try and say that this is the best we can do in the year 2021, then that is the saddest existence we can live, because all we follow are these basic notions. And the truth is that there's so much more going on out there, and there's so much being covered up and shut down that could threaten this existence, this basic existence that runs the planet,
Right.
The energy infrastructure, the thought, just even you got guys like Avi Loeb who are champions of some of the ideas that you discuss, and he's just being, battered and bruised by the mainstream academic community, because he's starting to say, hey guys, like, maybe we're going about this whole search for extraterrestrial life the
Right.
wrong way academically, right? And then there's people like yourself and so many other researchers out there that have stood up and waved their hand to the mainstream and said, there's something going on here that, like, can't be explained by our basic stories, our basic paradigm of existence, and everybody's being shut down or laughed at. And that's pretty much like why I got into documentary filmmaking. The first documentary I ever made was The Underground, which is about Phil Schneider and the notion that underground bases have been built all around the world, and that there might be different use cases for them, and there might be a possibility that exotic technologies are being used and housed in these out of sight, out of sound facilities.
Right.
And that's pretty much where I started, and I kind of reinvented that documentary a couple times. Not everything Phil Schneider said was true, but he was a very interesting character, and he got his start, speaking at a Bigfoot conference, and became huge in the UFO community. And I think these conferences that, like, you've been to and I've been to, and many other people that want to talk about the whole UFO issue, is where a lot of this stuff starts. And it's pretty interesting stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just have a question about Phil Schneider. So I've seen all your documentaries. So Phil, I've seen the Phil Schneider one. So you say that he wasn't being truthful. Because see, I always now I'm not that educated on Phil Schneider, but I always totally bought into Phil Schneider. I always thought that guy was totally genuine. So what is it about Phil Schneider or his story that there's, we don't know if he was lying or not, or he was lying. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, so I mean, it's come to light since we published the version of the documentary that we have out right now, that, like, he didn't lose his fingers from an alien firefight or whatever under the Dulce, New Mexico
Really?
range. Yeah, he didn't.
What happened?
I think he had an accident when he was much younger, because there's a photo of him when he was in his 20s, let's say, and I think those fingers were missing. So, you have to.
Go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
So I mean, I have to disclose that because it's something,
Right.
If you learn this, you don't want to perpetuate a bogus
Right.
myth. But the thing that's really interesting about Phil Schneider is that he built this massive grassroots movement to question what we're spending our military budget on. And he talked about black budget, and he popularized the idea that underground bases are out there. And he was a geologist, a metallurgist, like a guy that was involved in construction and stuff. And he did have 2 social security numbers. Now, you don't have two social security numbers unless there's a reason that they want to hide a part of your work history. And he was getting disability benefits under the social security number that he was wounded when he was working on these projects, like Morrison Knudsen, for example. Mm-hmm. Morrison Knudsen is a contractor that is well known, kind of like Bechtel, for doing the third-party construction work for these military projects. So I think he was involved in stuff. I think he was from a military family, and that his father was definitely a captain on the USS Nautilus, which was the very first nuclear powered sub that was part of the United States Navy. That was a black budget, submarine. And there's proof that Oscar Schneider was part of that. So I think what happened, in my opinion, is that Phil Schneider inherited some of this information from his father, because his father was definitely a part of this world. And when his father died, Phil collected a lot of that information, and that's when he really started going to these conferences and was getting it out there. And that's when he got attention, and apparently other folks that were interested in using him as a whistleblower were leaking more information to him. So he was becoming, in my opinion, somewhat dangerous to this whole paradigm that we're living.
Maybe he did have information, and in order to get it out and sell it, he used his convenient hand injury as a, I mean, that's really the only thing I can come up with. You know what I mean? That if that part of his story is not valid, because, just thinking, have you considered that?
I think that's accurate. And I've even said that before, that I think he tried to become almost this Rambo 007 type character that was, because his stories exemplified that type of Hollywood hero. I went down this basket and I took a Walther PPK with a 9-shot clip and I shot it right there, and it's right. Okay, yeah. And I mean, it's really, really interesting. It's really entertaining, and it gets your thought process going. And when I first heard this story from a girlfriend at the time, I was like, what? And I researched him, and I tried to find his family members and wanted to get more about this, find out more about his story. So I ended up speaking with his ex-wife, Cynthia Dreyer, and Lee Lustig, the other co-creator of that story. He ended up flying out and spending a few days at their family home and saw the pictures himself and got a lot of this evidence. And we pieced together the story and got the police reports from his death and all that stuff. And it was great. That was when I realized I want to make documentaries, because that was such a fun process. And Lee Lustig is one of my good friends still today. He lives in LA. He works on he's an editor and he is a writer himself. And he works on what's that really cool Netflix documentary show that's The Art of Cooking, and it's just shot so cinematic. And
I don't know.
You know what I think it's called Chef's Table. He's an editor on Chef's Table right now, and he's worked on Honey Boo Boo, that ridiculous reality TV show and stuff. He's hilarious. But
what made you want to go into this? Look, people don't get into this, and the ridicule. Look, it's our crowd, the people that come and watch these kind of films, or that come and watch the shows I do on my channel. These people, some of them are experiencers, or they've had experiences that tell them that there's many illusions going on this planet, right? But I mean, your average person doesn't just jump into ufology unless something happened to them. So did something happen to you? Did you see a ship, or did you have an experience?
Yeah, so the first thing to happen to me was that I was born with a great imagination. So growing up as a kid, I was freaked out about everything and always asking questions about super strange, outlandish ideas, and it drove my parents up the wall. I would ask them about anything, and they would just have to make up an answer because they wanted me to be able to get to bed at night. But other than that, I went to university, I got my education, and I took an elective course in astrobiology, and that intro course in astrobiology is called Life in the Universe. And the book that they present to you, Life in the Universe, in the first 10 pages, it basically shows that in pop culture, it is popular to think that our planet has already been visited, starting with the day the earth stood still and all kinds of old now pop culture science fiction that was based off of Donald Kehoe's book about real flying saucers and stuff that were being seen by the Air Force and civilians all throughout the 1940s, right? So that kind of set me up. And then you kind of venture down the statistical and the empirical evidence, which is the Drake equation that states, it's impossible that we're alone. And here's the facts of how many habitable planets that could foster life like us, that eventually have technology that could communicate with us and exist long enough to not destroy themselves. We are a warring nation. We wake up and we're at war with ourselves and war with each other in a lot of ways. There's a lot of
we are.
Primitive natures to us still. We're not that far removed from an ape. And it's possible that in our galaxy alone, based on the Drake equation, that there's millions of planets that have intelligent life. But if you pay attention to skeptics and pay attention to the mainstream theory that we're alone and that we were the only ones created with the only sentient life in the universe, it's hopeless. It's a hopeless idea, and it's stupid.
Right. It's depressing.
And that's what kicked me off. But I do think that I saw 2 UFOs with my own naked eyes. One time I was traveling from, I believe it was Colorado to Toronto, Canada. And when we went up in the air, I was looking out the window, and there's so many UFOs that have been recorded, by passenger commercial flights, people recording things out the window. And I was probably only about 20 years old, 21. I looked out the window and I saw just above the wing, like not right above the wing, but like near the sky above the wing. I had to look up quite a bit. I saw a cube, like a metallic cube. And I my heart almost stopped because I was just like so freaked out. I tried to grab my camera, which was like a really bad camera at the time, and record it. But it was almost as if whatever I was looking at understood or knew it was about to be recorded or observed, and it just moved itself over completely above the fuselage of the plane. And I was like trying my absolute most desperate attempt to see if I could get an angle where I could see this thing. And I thought maybe I had lost my mind. That was one incident. Another incident, which is probably a little less exciting. I was walking in Australia in 2013. Actually, in this doc, I don't know if you've seen it, but I interview a couple Australian guys, and that footage is from 2013. That's how long I've been working on this documentary.
Oh, wow.
And I'm walking down the street one night to go get a slice of pizza with a friend I was living with. And I look up in the sky and I'm like, do you see that? My friend's like, yeah. And there's like this ball of light that's way up, And, a satellite will slowly drift and sometimes come in and out of light. But this thing was solid white ball, and it just went from pretty much above our heads, way, way, way up in the sky, like star size, to over the horizon, and it zigzagged as it went and was gone. And we're like, what? Like, nothing moves like that, right? So that was the only other UFO experience I've ever had with my own naked eye. And yeah, I think there's so many people now that have had them. I'm convinced that there's a lot of stuff out there that's probably ours, and a lot of stuff out there that's not ours.
Absolutely. And you can feel, you can feel, so those cloaked ones, you can't see them, right? But if you got to really tune in though. But if you really tune in, you can feel the energy shifts, the pressure changes. You can feel the pressure change. You can feel the temperature change. You can feel when there's something that's you can't see with your naked eye that's above you. You know what I mean? But you have to be, like I said, you have to be super tuned in to pick up on it, right? So that night, I picked up on that. Like, I was tripping. I was like, there's some cloaked stuff above my head, right? And I was picking up on that before I left, so that's why that was completely incredible that I caught that on camera. But like you said, our phones nowadays, we got the IR on there and all that stuff. We're able to, I think it depends on whatever light bending, it depends on the technology they're using. If it's ET technology or it's ours, they're using very different stuff for the cloaking. And maybe some of it, I don't know, what's your theory on it? Maybe some of it, what's your theories on the cloaking and how they're able to get away with not being at all visible to the public ever, unless they want to be?
We kind of touch on that in this documentary. I mean, with Jeremy's explanation of metamaterials. So if you look at the United States Air Force's B-2 bomber and the F-117, those two aircraft use a metamaterial, which Jim Goodall actually holds up at one point in the documentary, and it's this radar absorption material. Okay,
right.
So that's a very basic metamaterial, and what Jeremy Reese talks about in the documentary is the fact that metamaterials have been tested at Kirkland Air Force Base, or sorry, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base for a long time now. And the types of things that they've been testing are materials that can refract light, that can project certain images. And if you think about it, if you think about the footage that you took, where you saw something that you considered holographic after, that's exactly what a metamaterial will do. It will hide the true shape or the true form of an object, and you can either project what you want them to see, or you can just you could just have light pass right through it, and it will mirror whatever is behind you.
That's like what Tyler was talking about, how they project the sky behind them so that it looks. That's how you can still see stars right through it, because they're projecting the sky behind them. Yeah, that's what a metamaterial.
That's what a metamaterial would do. Right. And the age-old theory is that we have captured or been given some form of technology or craft that's not ours, and we would have reverse engineered some of it. And people have talked about, Bob Lazar is famous for stating that he was hired to try and reverse engineer. It was a futile attempt, but they were testing out how to figure out how the propulsion system works for one of these craft. But imagine if these craft also had metamaterials that allowed them to blend in or project something to prevent folks like us from seeing these craft, and that might even be,
Or projecting an airplane.
or
So you see
projecting an airplane,
right, instead of a ship.
yeah. So
Yes.
that is that's one of the things that's part of the lore of this whole study, this whole subject of UFOs. And people might say, well, why would they want to do that? And it's like, well, if your objective is to observe and not to disturb, then that's a perfect reason to have this form and function for your craft, because then people won't be disturbed by your presence if they see, okay, what is that hovering over top of my head?
And again,
But,
you can project UFOs at an event. I mean, I'm just saying. I've had a lot of experiences with UFOs. I've seen quite a bit of ships, and both ET and ours, in my opinion. And those butterfly looking things, those were weird, and I knew it when I saw them. I was like, I don't know about this. This is weird. This is almost like a show, and it makes perfect sense to me that, you know, they were hologram tech being tested on the public, or like, you know what I mean? How else, if you want to test some hologram tech and some fake UFOs to see if people are going to buy it, where do you go? CE5 at a UFO conference, man. In fact, Contact in the Desert would be ideal. I mean, if I was flying one of those things, that's where I'd go to test it out.
Exactly. It's like a PSYOP and
Right.
a proof of concept for technology all rolled into one. And it's freaky. Like it's really freaky that seems to be the case. And where else has this been? I mean, when people like Dr. Stephen Greer, talk about how there's going to be this false flag attack, and that they're going to use some kind of projected HARP type technology.
What do you think about that, Darcy?
I've spoken to Richard Dolan, and he has evidence to prove that whole like theory actually came from kind of a nut job that invented that in that whole story in Quebec, Canada, believe it or not.
Really? I thought it came from Werner von Braun. I thought it came from. Go ahead.
Not the HARP projection technology. That came from this Quebecois in Canada. His name is escaping me, but
I mean the fake alien invasion plan. You know, using UFO tech.
Carol Rawson said that Werner von Braun warned that.
Right.
That was the final card or something, right? But so the HARP thing, the projection thing, like using the clouds as a giant projection screen or something like that, that whole idea came from this Quebecois guy, right? And that guy said that they were also going to falsify the second coming of Christ in the same way. So that's how outlandish it got with that theory. But when you think about metamaterials and TR3Bs and these type of crafts that could project things that people believe they're seeing, that's where the Stephen Greer and the Carol Rawson, Werner von Braun warning, that's where that scenario could play out, you know, and that's where it's interesting. I mean, we're living a really exciting time right now because everybody's thinking disclosure is unraveling in a certain way that's possibly to the advantage of the powers that be, the militaries and the intelligence agencies and the monarchs of the world. But we'll see how things unfold. Knowledge is power, right? And if you have some of these ideas from these really esoteric and fringe subculture ideas that are out there, it helps. You know, it's just something to keep your mind open to. Don't let your brain and mind fall right out of your head because you just believe every one of them that gets thrown out there. But it still keeps things interesting. So
would you venture to say that these folks that are in charge of some of these programs that are unacknowledged would probably be, you know, a bit on the narcissistic, maybe psychopathic side, right? So it just makes sense to me. If I had that kind of technology and nobody knew it, you know what I mean? Like, why not have Jesus return just to see what happens? You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you know, and then what they can do with holograms now, they don't even need to bust out real ships. They could just do a hologram invasion of ships, and that would be enough to freak most people out, because most people have never even seen a ship, don't even know they exist, really. Most of the population, we kind of, in our UFO world, we tend to think everybody, they kind of have some concept of this, right? No, there's a lot of people that really just don't know. Like, they really think that rockets are all we have, and, you know, they just don't know. And if they saw something, because I know what it did to me, it gave me an immediate shift. It was like this. It was so traumatic, it took me months to get over it, right? So if you do something like that to the public, it'd be easy to do because they don't even know this kind of technology exists. That's why it ties into what you just said about knowledge is power. Because I think getting this in two ways, getting this information, I want to see if you agree, getting this information out there, right? Planting that seed with people, or maybe that's one little thing that they hear in this one documentary or in the show or whatever, but you're planting that seed, right? And then I think what happens is they have their own experience, which confirms to them in some other way that what you're saying is valid, and makes them look into it more and more like that. And I think at a point, I mean, to me, I don't think the extraterrestrials are just going to show up. I think on maybe on an individual basis, as people are ready, they'll start having experiences. And then once enough people have experiences, but they don't get to that place unless they have the seed planted and they start researching, right? But once they get to that place, if enough people start having these experiences, then it won't matter what kind of lies they're trying to sell us anymore. It won't matter, because the people just will be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, they just won't. You get what I'm saying with that? What's your opinion on that? How does disclosure play out, Darcy? How does it play out?
I think the public is always going to be very blind to this idea that we're not alone. I think that disclosure might even happen one day, and people will just go, huh, that's interesting.
We knew that.
And then they'll change the channel and watch, you know, some guy tackle another guy into the ground holding a ball.
Right.
So it's like, it's not an idea that people are going to be super jazzed about, I think, off the top. In my opinion, I think where it really would take off is when we're getting into space exploration as a united society and trying to colonize places like Mars in the open, you know. And I think
program in an acknowledged program with a budget and oversight.
In a public, acknowledged, you know, open ledger, white budget project, you know, when it's like Elon Musk is firing up his Starship to take the first settlers to Mars, I think that's when it's going to be handy to divulge to people, like, hey, we might not be fully alone, because that's when we're entering their realm, you know, like the place where we don't have a lot of control. And there's a lot of debate about when the Apollo program happened and Gemini and all that stuff. That's really when these narcissists and incredibly knowledgeable insiders to the NASA space program and stuff, we're probably being humbled by the fact that there's things out there that are more advanced than us buzzing around the planet. And there's lots of evidence of that in the first documentary that you saw, the Secret Space UFOs Part 1, right?
Yeah.
So,
great documentary.
Thank you.
Just
So,
can't say enough about the footage you had in there. It was incredible.
yeah, and it's not all thanks to me. It's my friend Carrie Martinuk, who did tons and tons of research before he suffered like a couple of cerebral accidents. I'm still communicating with them every month, and if the success of these films are good, I want to be able to like help him out and stuff like that. But he's been through some tough times, but before he went through all these cerebral accidents, he basically constructed this massive database of UFO incidents during the early space age. And he helped me construct that first documentary. Very akin to Tyler and Jim Goodall and Richard Dolan and all these other incredible researchers that helped me construct this new documentary,
Yeah, so I was wondering how that kind of came about with Tyler. That's, it's having his voice, when you watch Secure Team, right? Having his voice kind of narrating, and a lot of it has that, you know what I mean? It has that like Secure Team vibe. So it's kind of cool.
100%. Yeah.
I like it.
So with Tyler, we first started off on kind of a bad foot.
Yeah.
I found out that he had used a lot of the footage of my friend Carrie Martinuk, who went by Luna Cognita, on his channel for a long time. And
okay, I remember hearing about that now. I know what you're talking about.
And Carrie and I were like, let's write him an email, figure it out. I did that. We figured it out. But then Tyler was like, this guy's still alive. Like, I thought he was gone. I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know his name was Carrie Martinuk. And I was like, well, why don't I introduce him to you? And we can just like do a live stream and talk about it on your channel or whatever. And so we did that. And before we did that, Tyler and I like started talking more. And I said, man, like, it would be great if you helped me make this next documentary, because I have some ideas I want to present, and I think you would be perfect for, putting your touch on this documentary.
Yeah.
The thing about Tyler is that he's one of the most humble people you've ever met. And, he's always on his channel like, I'm sorry, guys. And,
I've never met Tyler. I don't know how, but I've never met him. We run in the same circles, but I've never met him.
He's a good dude. And, he's had some bad stuff go down in his life personally and all that in the past few years. And I don't wish that upon anybody. But he's really pulled himself up out of all that. And he's a good person. I think he's done, just like you have, a lot of good things for this field of research and the interest in it publicly. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
I have always been a fan of his channel. Even before I probably published, I published the first incarnation of the Underground on YouTube back in 2012. And Tyler really started coming up, I think, in 2009. He started really getting his channel going, 2008. So I even liked some of his stuff back then, and it took a long time, but like, he helped with this film in a great way. I mean, he even reached out to folks that were watching his channel that were animators, folks like you that had footage of possible TR3B sightings. And without his help, this film never would have been completed the way it was. And I'm incredibly grateful, and I'm glad to have him as a friend. Like, I have gotten to know him over the past year, and I think he's going to be a lifelong friend.
That's super cool. You guys did absolutely great with it. Like I said, his voice narrating it gives it that secure team feel that's kind of, it's kind of perfect. It totally works. It's awesome. So we don't have a whole lot of time left before our hour's up. So let's touch on the Men in Black subject. So to kind of lead into that. So I've talked about this, I don't know on how many shows. I think it's really funny. Actually, when I got that footage, I was totally new to ufology at the time. I had never gotten anything crazy like that on tape before, right? And I didn't know. I mean, I'm very educated now, but at the time I didn't know, right? So when I got that on tape, I thought, oh my God, I was at Contact. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get hemmed up by the Men in Black. I just swear, like I had that tape backed up in like 3 places before I even left the event, because I was going to have to drive like 3 hours through the desert, and I was totally sketched out that they were going to take my footage. And I'm not even trying to run into one of them anyways. You know what I mean? Like, for any reason, under any circumstance, do I want to meet one of them? The human ones, nor the non-human, or the hybrid, whatever they are. I don't want to meet any of them. So it was so funny that I was going, you should have seen people running around trying to help me back it up, because we were afraid I was just never going to make it out of there with that footage. So anyway, on that note, should we roll your the clip for your Men in Black movie real quick, and then talk about the Men in Black here for a minute?
Sure, do it.
Okay,
Why not?
let's roll it.
Well, Men in Black is a concept that's been in the UFO field since really the beginning of the UFO field, essentially.
What is the true mission of the Men in Black? Is it the suppression of information regarding UFOs and extraterrestrials?
Albert K. Bender founded the International Flying Saucer Bureau in 1952 during the big UFO flap. Now, these figures were very dark in nature. They were wearing hats, almost like a fedora style, and they had glowing eyes.
Yeah, it all seems pretty horrible, especially if they threaten you or threaten your family, and you're not sure if they're from another planet or not.
What Jacobs said in the aftermath of that was that he was subject to a range of harassment type of activities. Some of these things would include threatening phone calls at all times of the day, and even to vandalism against his property damage.
There is no more exciting story that I could write or Aviation Week could publish than to say, at last, we've come across one UFO report that cannot be explained in prosaic terms. Maybe this is an alien spaceship. Biggest story of all time.
Of these objects, and that's why the response could be as fast as it was to Westall. That's why the military could get there as quickly as they did that day, because there was some, if you like, forewarning in the suburb of Baldwin, about 20 kilometres from Westall, just 4 days before the Westall incident.
Take Richard Doty, former special agent of the Air Force who was tasked with infiltrating the UFO community to instill doubt and misinformation of UFO encounters.
Men in Black have always been present in the UFO community since back in the 50s and 60s.
This story follows an age-old pattern of a prominent Men in Black cover-up. A UFO incident occurs. Experiencers witness something that shouldn't exist in our conventionally understood reality.
Cool.
Right.
So when does that one come out?
That's out.
It's out?
It's out. Yeah.
Oh, when did it come out?
It came out in November, so it's kind of a weird back-to-back thing that happened with 1091. Yeah, so that's up there. It's getting some good reviews and stuff on Amazon, and people are responding well to it. I think one of the best reviews that I got about that documentary, which is very true, is like, this is a very like elementary lesson in cover-up and the possibility that multiple different types of agencies or entities are involved with facilitating that cover-up.
So are they, I mean, Darcy, what do you think? Are they human? Are they not human? What are they?
Well, based on testimony of so many people, what seems like credible testimony, Both. So if you're having a Man in Black encounter that's human, it's going to be an agent from one of the 3-letter agencies.
Yep.
So you've got different layers for why those guys might come visit your home. And in the case of Richard Doty, he was a agent for the Office of Special Investigations, OSI, for the Air Force. Okay, so Air Force OSI. And their whole job was to intercept, retrieve information, and take away information from witnesses.
Counter intel.
Whether,
right?
yeah, and to also give them false information. So he was actually partly responsible for spreading the UFO rumor across the United States when he was active in like the 80s, you know, because they would have a special secret aircraft that they would be flying. And the thing is that every time they fly these aircraft, they know everybody that's in the area. You know, they do their intelligence work before they fly it.
Right.
And that's why afterwards they're able to knock on the door of whoever observed it or took a photo the next day.
Drones too.
Yeah.
They watched my first encounter. There was 8 of them there immediately. So the AI dispatched them or something because they were there immediately.
Yeah, I'd say now the surveillance technology is so advanced and artificial intelligence is involved with even surveillance. The satellite technology, like everything that you take for granted that helps you every day, is laced with listening devices and observation devices. And so I think, yeah, with Richard Doty, his case is human, but you know, you've got FBI will be sent out to shut down a scientist that created some free energy device. CIA will be sent out to shut down somebody within a department of another intelligence or DIA agency. For the, you know, the example we use in this documentary is John Callahan, who testified for Stephen Greer's citizen hearing. Or no, it wasn't. He testified for Stephen Bassett's citizen hearing in 2014, and he also testified in the Disclosure Project press briefing in 2001 for Stephen Greer. And his story goes by the Alaska Airlines UFO incident, where they were flying over, you know, past Anchorage, some Japanese pilots. And sorry, not Alaska Airlines, Japanese airline pilots. They observed 2 smaller UFOs come out of a massive UFO that was like the size of a football field. And these guys were just flying cases of wine to Japan, the poor bastards. And they had to do incredible maneuvers to try and get around this massive UFO. They did like a full-on loop in the sky to get out to, and you know, there's radar contact information and FAA reports that John Callahan leaked. And he worked for the FAA, and they were having meetings after about this incident. And what happens is this gets flown up the flagpole in terms of intelligence, and you know, ooh, this is scary, this incident, maybe this shouldn't get out to the public. And there's a meeting called where all of the people in the FAA that were involved with researching this were put into one room, and the CIA showed up, confiscated all the evidence. John Callahan held on to his because he knew something was coming, and that's why we have this information today. But the CIA were Men in Black in this case. They took that information, they confiscated it, and they didn't let that be seen by the light of the day. So you have many different agencies that will facilitate this sort of men in black activity, which is suppression. It's all about controlling the narrative.
So how do we trust Doty now? I mean, this thought occurs to me all the time because he's in documentaries all the time and he's in interviews all the time. And, you know, he comes with some good information, but I can't help but to think to myself whenever I see him, you know, and I've not met Doty myself, is how do we trust you now? You know what I mean? Your entire job, your entire life was counter intel. Like, how are we supposed to trust what you're saying to us now? Like, you know, I any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there interviewing him for this documentary, and I am thinking the very same things when I met him, and then after he left my presence, I was like, what was that, right? But the thing is,
how much of that was the truth? You know what I mean?
If we have so much confirmation of evidence from all these other stories over here and stories over here, and it comes together in this collage of what seems plausible, then that's the truth, right? And this is just an added, this is like his testimony adds to that. I mean, do I believe that he was part of the cover-up? Yes. Do I believe that he disinformed some folks that what they saw was an alien craft, and that, you know, this was a national security issue and they needed the photos from that incident? Yeah, I think he did feed some information. Do I think that some of the incidents that he observed or was tasked to cover up were possibly not our black budget, you know, special aircraft projects? That's very possible. I think he might actually be telling the truth to some degree, right? And I feel like he is interested in getting some of that truth out. He speaks at these conferences. He spoke at that conference that I was at, where I met him and did the interview. And
what conference was that? Do you know? Or can you say?
Yeah, it was the UFO Mega Conference of 2021.
Where's that one? It was in the United States or somewhere else?
Yeah, it's in Laughlin, Nevada, just north of
I almost went to that, but I wasn't there. I almost went there.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah, I actually presented there too, and my presentation was on secret space, but not to believe everything that's out in the secret space lore. And I was kind of like nudging, you know, the David Wilcock and that sort of camp of storytellers. My secret space sort of thesis is that, yeah, we're probably being visited, and we're probably doing some interesting activities in space that are not in the public, but I'm not like saying that there's, you know, Captain Falco from Star Fox and the, you know, alliance of something else.
Darcy, I get it. You're like me and Foyle with our Space Force News show. Everything we talk about secret space program stuff, we theorize and stuff, but everything we talk about is sauced. Like we can present information, articles. We can present all the information to back up the stuff that we talk about. So, and it's the same thing with you. Like, you present this topic, which to some people this is a woo topic, right? The secrecy, but it's really not, because there's a lot of evidence to support this. And like you said, even when it comes to a person like Richard Doty, who it's questionable whether everything he says is going to be accurate or truthful, but when you get enough of the same, you know, dots that you can connect and all of these same parts of the story line up, then it kind of solidifies a certain narrative on a topic, right? So everybody's piece of the puzzle and their story is important, I think, for us arriving at the truth, especially when it comes to this topic. So
yeah, and I think like he, you know, in the presentations he does at these conferences, he even walks that line where he goes like, this is what I used to do, I'm not like, proud of it type thing, but it was my job. And this is what I know now. And this is, I'm not, I would say what he's trying to say is I'm retired. I'm not in the know anymore.
I'm not getting paid to lie anymore.
I'm not being paid to lie anymore, but I would believe that based on what I was part of and what I think is already out there, that it's very possible that we are doing these types of things and that, there's this type of technology and yada, yada. So I think he's helpful, but at the same time, you never know. You might have to distrust some things that he says. He could still be working. Who knows?
Right? We don't know. It's an interesting question. I want to thank a couple gold pills over on the Foxhole. What's going on, Foxhole? I didn't really even say hello to you guys. What's going on, Rockfin? YouTube, Twitch, D-Live. It's good to see you guys. Suki came with the cookie. Woohoo. I got another woohoo. Cookie, missed you gals. Gals. There's only one gal up here today, Sean Joe, but maybe he thought Foil was going to be on with me. I'm not sure. Laura Cunon with the ship. A ship for the commander. Thank you so much, Laura. Really appreciate it. Sean Joe with the cookie. Suki with another cookie. She's cooking me to death tonight, but that's fine. Show our girls some love. Sean Joe with the cookie. Led to Gold with the cookie. Sean Joe with another cookie. Teenager with the ship. Space Striots Unite. Love you, Alara and Foil. Everybody thought Foil was gonna be on with us tonight, apparently. Miracle Girly with the cookie. Yay. Jay Brewskis with the shades. Welcome back, shades. What else we got here? Zeta Anon. I didn't want to do these in the middle of the show because I didn't want to interrupt our conversation. Normally I do it like that, but Phone. Hi, Laura. One of my favorite human beings. Much love, girl. Woke Society's in the house. What's up, Scott? Good to see you here. Came with the can. Yes, that's our fellow UFO over there, Woke Societies. I don't know if you know who Scott is, but he's one of us for sure. He's definitely one of us.
Introduce me.
Awesome guy. Yeah, Scott's an awesome guy. He was pulled off YouTube. He's just over on the Foxhole now, and I don't know. He's on like 8 platforms like me. He's on all the other ones. I think Rumble and D Live, all the other ones like Twitch and all that. But yeah, he was pulled off YouTube. But Scott's awesome. He's had some crazy experiences like I have, and yeah, he's awesome. Joyful June. Miracle Girly with the shades for the new glasses. Look great. Also loving this conversation. Got distracted by the glasses. Well, thank you, Miracle Girly. I really appreciate you. Let's see who else here. Okay. Thanks, you guys, for all the gold pill love. Suki with the cookie. Once again, love this show. Miracle Girly with cookie. My hubs loves the ufology stuff, but he watches Ancient Aliens. More mainstream media garbage. Not all, but a lot. Jay Brewskis with the cookie. Kaboomer with the can. What else we got here? Thanks, you guys. Our Cloaked Unseen with the cookie. All my love to everyone. Where we go when we go. When you get free time, check out DMs. Many peeps probably waiting for a reply. Okay, Ryan. Thank you for the cookie. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Zeta Anon with the can. Probes on Mars were smashed. Okay, the probes on Mars were smashed. Do you know what Zeta Anon's referring to there?
He's talking about Phobos 1 and Phobos 2.
Right? Yeah, that was one of the Phobos ones that was destroyed allegedly by a UFO, right?
Yeah, I think one of the Phobos 2 took a photo before it was went off course or smashed or something, and apparently the last photo that it took was of a UFO.
Right? That's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy that I wonder if the UFO really did just take it out. Like I'm surprised they don't do that more often. Like we don't really want you here right now, and just sort of take it out. But they do that. It really happens all the time.
I think that's part of the Russian space program. So that wasn't even NASA, and that is an interesting case because it's possible that maybe there's stuff that's autonomous, like. We have drones that are run by AI on our planet, but who's to say that AI, like artificial intelligence that's run by another race that's operating in our solar system or might have just left relic technology that's shutting down stuff in parts of our solar system that shouldn't be there.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Oumuamua and the Black Knight alone, like, what's that doing up there? You know what I mean? And Oumuamua,
Yeah.
like, what's that thing doing? Because it doesn't have people on board. So what, right? So, or do we not know?
That could be a massive drone or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think Avi Loeb says that it was rotating, which is like not something we would typically think an aircraft would do, you know, flying or something, or not an aircraft, a spacecraft. But the way that it sped up when it was in certain places in the solar system and certain behaviors that it exhibited kind of demonstrate that it wasn't a typical asteroid or comet that will fly by the sun or fly by our planet. And it could have been relic, what he would say, relic technology from another race that's come into our solar system, checking us out, and then see you later.
Right. Interesting stuff. I can't wait till we can find out more information about it. Dodie, Danny, I've got just a few more here. Dodie, Danny coming with the can. Thank you, Dodie, Danny. M1911 Zoom with the cookie. Thank you, Miracle Girlie with the shades. Thank you so much. And I think that covers all of them. So, Darcy, let people know, and I need you to send me your links so I can post them in the YouTube description, but please let everybody know where they can find your awesome documentaries and find you and all that good stuff.
Cool, yeah. If people want to check out the trailers for my docs or a little write-up and the poster, they can just go to occultjourneys.com. That's my studio site. But yeah, most of my films are available on like Amazon Prime, iTunes. A bunch of them are free, completely free, if you go to tubetv.com and just search Darcy Weir. Yeah, like, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the support as an independent filmmaker who's been, you know, doing everything they can to portray this subject in an interesting way. It means a lot to be invited by you. And what's the deal with the cookie? Why is everybody saying so much about cookies on your show?
So that's the foxhole. So when everybody got yanked off YouTube when they started censoring, and they pulled a whole bunch of big channels, or like a little bit bigger channels down off of there. Well, they pulled a lot of people, really, but I think they started at a certain amount of subscribers. They started yanking your channel. Then they cared, I guess. So there was a group of people that built another platform called the Foxhole. That's what I'm referring to. And over on the Foxhole, it's straight free speech. You can say what you want. There's no shadow banning. There's no censoring. And it's kind of become like we're like a family over there. You know what I mean? It started out as mostly the people that were taken off YouTube, but now it's kind of grown and grown and grown and grown. And it's just a home for everybody who just free speech is important to them. And it's just an awesome plate. The people on the Foxhole are awesome. We already have a way to monetize on there. Like, it's super cool. And please let Tyler know that he has a home on the Foxhole if he's interested or would like it. You know what I mean? Like,
cool.
So
yeah, that's the biggest fear, right?
Because they're going to come for us next. I'm telling you, they're going to start coming for the disclosure people when it comes to censorship.
Maybe. That's scary, a really scary thought. I don't want that to happen, because then there goes my whole career, Alara.
Right. I hope not.
Yeah.
But you're in you got independent films, so you're kind of in a position where you can continue to do that. That's why I had to stay away from. I'm still on YouTube, but I don't really pay it no mind, except for the people there. Of course, I love the people there, but I don't really pay, because I know that at any time I'm already shadow banned there, and I know that at any time they could just yank me down. So, I make sure that I'm out on all these other platforms, so that if anybody pulls that, whether it be YouTube or somebody else, I don't really care. You know what I mean? I'm already 18 other places, and it doesn't. No skin off. You know what I mean? Like, the people that got originally pulled down, it hurt them. They weren't expecting that. They didn't realize that YouTube was going to start just shutting people down out of nowhere. So
yeah,
I'm really proud of them and what they've achieved. They've really I've watched them all sort of bounce back from being totally censored. Shout out to Severe. He's one of them who has just had every account pulled, been censored in every way you could be, and has just managed to bounce back from that. And yeah, I'm really proud of a lot of these people that have been through, had it a lot worse than I have. You know, I feel stupid complaining about the shadow banning I've received when I've seen other people be completely leveled when it comes to like PayPal, all their MailChimp accounts, everything that they have being taken out. So
weird. Wow.
For right now, we tend to be in the clear for right now, but I think the day is going to come where we're going to be the target when they're really trying to control the UFO narrative and the disclosure narrative tightly. There will come a day where this is what I believe. So, you know, it's good to have yourself in a lot of different locations so that they you know, big tech can't get away with doing that to any of us. So
I'll check out Foxhole.
Yeah, the Foxhole's awesome. The Foxhole's awesome. Yeah, and it was so awesome. I'm so glad this came together like this, Darcy. It was awesome working with you and being a part of this project. And I am so grateful that my footage, you got my footage out like to more people than I could have ever done. So thank you so much, and thank you to Tyler. And it was just an awesome experience getting to do this with you guys.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I'll be in touch because
all right, cool.
I like you, and I think you have a lot to offer. Yeah, cool. All right. Thank
cool.
you.
Well, have a wonderful evening, and thank you for coming on.
You too.
All right,
take care.
All right. Good night.
Stay safe.
You too.